I greatly appreciate, and I hope you do as well, all of the things we talked about today. So for us, it's always been about advancing science, making innovative therapies happen, having fun while we do it, helping each other learn and grow. And our vision and our mission has been to potentially bring curative gene therapies to patients with devastating diseases. And we can do things at Rocket. Other companies can do things in their labs and research facilities. But what happens a lot of times is the work we do kind of gets stuck in our own little ecosystem, right? And we really appreciate that over the last few years, we've been able to try to amplify the work we do. The lessons we learned, let's share them so others won't make the same mistakes. But the good work we've done, let's share that so it can be a great representation. Gene therapy is still in the forefront of innovation. It is scary. It's like, I used to use this analogy back in the day when iPhones came out, right? People like me were stuck on BlackBerry, refused to give it up, and there were early adapters, and there are people still with flip-flops in my house, right? So you have the arena. And I think what makes an impact in a significant factor of amplifying the impact that we're doing is honestly individuals like Maneet. Maneet, we're so excited to have you here. Maneet Ahuja, she is an editor-at-large at Forbes. And you guys all know Forbes. I mean, this is the globally recognized outlet that does so much, not just from the media content and the outlets of the newspaper, but conferences, 50 under 50, 30 under 30. They do so many things, Forbes women activities. So we had a pleasure to meet Maneet about a year ago in New York City by a great event that was put together by our friend, she's I think in here, Anita, and her organization with Kevin's help and Gaurav and others. And we started talking about the passion she has. And what was great is while she has an ability to really amplify and talk about everything that's going on, there's so much going on in the world. I'm so grateful that Maneet has spent time and her team has covered gene therapy, has covered Rocket, and has covered diseases that are challenging. So I'm so grateful that she's here to help us amplify the work we do so we can truly make this impact, not decades and decades and hundreds of years from now to come, but we can actually make a greater impact faster. So thank you for being here. Would love to have you join us on the stage. We're so honored to have you here. She is an author. She's produced TV shows, producer, and now she's doing one of the most fabulous, dreamy jobs ever that my niece would love to do and grow up to do one day. So it's a great pleasure to having you here. Thank you so much. Come on. And with us, we also have Gaurav joining. Of course, you guys all know Gaurav.
Well, Kinnari, Gaurav, thank you both so much for the invitation to be here, and thank you all for joining here today. To be honest, it's a huge honor. And in preparation for this, I had no idea. You're doing a service in that you're educating the world's leading media companies about the forefront research when it comes to rare diseases. I had no idea that over 300, closer to 400 million people are impacted with rare diseases. You know, on the surface, when you hear the word rare diseases, you think that it's rare. And it was even more heartbreaking to hear about how so many times children are affected. And, you know, we all know when it comes to healthcare challenges and early detection is really important and early action. And so this is such an educational day for so many of us. And so I thank you guys for your contributions to the entire community, the healthcare community, and then also from a media perspective in educating the world. So.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. And so Gaurav and Kinnari, you guys are this dynamic duo, and I want to hear a little bit about And no, because at the end of the day, Forbes is a business publication. So I'm thinking about the entire ecosystem of Rocket Pharmaceuticals and what has led to such significant success, right? We're thinking about also its reputation in the marketplace and its perception in the market, in addition to the incredible research and work that you're doing. So I think it would be a great place to start to understand more about the vision of Rocket. Gaurav, you were one of the co-founders of the company. It started in 2015. Can you tell us a little bit about big picture vision for Rocket and how you guys are working with patients and working on gene therapies?
Sure. So first of all, I think many people understand when I say, good luck moderating this. So I would say, I was thinking about this actually earlier today, and the mission, which is an active word, right? What is your mission? What are you going to do? Is seeking gene therapy cures. The vision is that gene therapy cures, right? So that's the sort of the direction we're going in. And we're rooted in certain values that are aspirational. And I think we talked about them through our patient stories and with David and others: trust, curiosity, generosity, and elevate. And the idea is, just to paint a very big picture, is not that all of us are perfect at trust and not perfectly generous and curious all the time and not elevating all the time, but it's that together we can make one another better at those aspirational values, and that ultimately goes back in the service of patients and in the service of the vision that gene therapy cures. So that's sort of that was the idea years ago. And I would say that gene therapy is one of the rare modalities of medicine that has emerged in the history of our species that is truly potentially curative, because you're replacing the core DNA. That's the basis of who we are as physical beings. You're replacing faulty DNA with correct DNA, so there's no better cure to genetic diseases than gene therapy. So we've been around for 8 years, very proud and also humbled by the work ahead.
Yeah, so on that point, again, we've discussed the company started in 2015, and we're seeing all of these terrific advances in biotech. How is that helping to further the mission and the work that you guys are doing?
Yeah, every year has not been easy. There are good years and bad years, and I think just going back to challenges and how to overcome them, I think since 2015, it's been a delicate dance between storytelling and execution, right? What you do is you have to have a vision, tell the story, tell the vision to people, investors, potential employees, potential partners, and then people buy into the vision. And then you got to go back and execute little by little, and then tell the story again, iterate.
Accountability is so key, especially as a public company.
Absolutely. Accountability to one another, to investors, and by the way, our biggest investors are the associates in the company, right? Because you've invested your life and time and blood, sweat, and tears. Hey, by the way, David, I get to call on you, hi David, from the audience for the first time. I'm happy about that. I'm going to make fun of you now.
Yes, so we seem to hear about a new biotech company every day. We talk about, again, say it the third time within the first few minutes, 2015. That's nearly a decade, which sounds like a long time, but it's also a short time in which the company has gone public, and also considering the industry and the runway and how long it usually has taken historically for drug development, especially when we're talking about precision therapy, gene therapy, rare diseases. There's multi-year time horizons. Talk to us about the overall business landscape there and how that all factors in.
Well, you want to start first with drug development.
So for drug development, I think what we did is we brought together a small team because, we didn't have that much money and we had ideas. We brought back together teams and team members that had experiences doing drug development before. Having the experience, but yet having individuals that were curious, willing to learn. And then we ended up partnering with some of the best experts in the world. So the CMAT, which is like the NIH of Spain, Fred Hutch Institute, Stanford, UCLA, and UC San Diego, these individuals and experts were doing gene therapy for 20, 30 years. And we partnered with them in our relationship of trust. We said, here's what we know how to do. We know how to develop drugs and get it to patients. We need to learn about gene therapy. We need to learn about complication of the science, the preclinical, the manufacturing. And I think because of that relationship and how we approach our science, our expertise, but how well we learn from them, every single step of the way, patients being the North Star in the center of everything we do, I think made things easier. and we were able to overcome challenges. So what we did is, let's think about everything from a platform approach. Initially, we had 3 programs licensed: LAD1, Fanconi anemia, and PKD. All 3 programs had some things in common. They were devastating diseases, no treatment options, they were blood disorders, and the only thing available was bone marrow transplant. But there were scientists that had been working on this anywhere from 10 years to 20 years. So there was a lot of preclinical research and ideas behind it. So we said, how do we take these ideas into a drug that goes into the patients? We talked to the patients, the treating physicians, and we worked hand in hand with FDA and the health authorities in Europe to design a study that could be meaningfully able to tell a clear benefit risk from first patient onward. So some of the things that Rocket did, which were unique and we had to explain ourselves to a lot of investors. We said, we want to have a commercial product from the first patient onwards. So like, no, it's cheaper, right? All other biotech companies do it cheaper by academic, and eventually you get a better and better product. We said, if a patient only has 1 shot of life and life-altering therapy, let's try to get the best therapy to them. So for LAD1 and PKD, we were able to put a commercial-grade product from the first patient ever treated.
Wow.
And I think the result of that was pretty cool. Because we were able to use every single patient's data to really talk about benefit risk. So we went to first in human, first LAD patient ever treated was a child from Florida. She came to meet us a few years ago at Rare Disease Day, talking about how her life has changed, and she wants to do a road trip, and she's going to grow up and do this at 16. And her mom said, I didn't think she would be alive right now.
Oh my gosh.
And now she's dreaming of a life ahead. So she was such an inspiration to so many of us that were here. And those 9 patients' dossiers, what's going to the FDA right now, currently under review.
Yes.
We're hoping that the product gets approved on June 30th. But we use the technology platform of Fanconi anemia and PKD wherever possible. We said, could we use the same manufacturing? Could we use the same platform? And are there things that we can do to make it efficient? So 5 years from first patient infused at LAD, we're looking at a drug approval, which is pretty cool.
That's incredible, right? Because the usual time frame is what, 10, 15 years?
Definitely.
For one drug. And so I want to take a step back because, at Forbes, we interview thousands of founders from across the world, entrepreneurs and CEOs. But considering when you're starting, you're talking about partnering with all of these world-renowned academic institutions and organizations like NIH, World Health Organization, Stanford. You mentioned that. Talk to me a little bit about what resonated at the outset, what the congruence was there that helped that get you off the ground so quickly, like a rocket, we could say.
Like a rocket. I think we shared the same things. We said, we care about the science, and we care about making a difference in patients. So it doesn't matter what experiences we have, what can we do collectively to make a difference? So I'm impressed by amazing individuals like Jeffrey Modell's and Vicky Modell, that mom that impacted 1 million lives, right? There are very few individuals that can do so much, but to us, it always felt like, hey, individually, we are not going to be able to accomplish even 1/10 of our dreams. So let's work in an ecosystem and bring everyone together for collaboration of science in service of patients. And I think that message really resonated. And I think we were lucky that we worked with some amazing people that were willing to teach us and learn from us. And that made drug development efficient. And we went from 1 product to now 6 programs in the clinic.
That's amazing.
It's
That's
insane.
amazing.
And 2 different platforms.
And so I want to congratulate you guys officially on the drug that you're hoping to get approval from in June. Talk to me for a minute, both of you, about what success would look like if that drug gets approved. What would the timeline for success, at least the first, early promising signs of success. This is a very long time horizon for these things. But we're fighting against, like we talk about, rare diseases. And we're fighting against the clock, right? So what would you like to see happen?
So maybe I'll start off from a drug development perspective. I think if a severe LAD1 patient's diagnosed and they have access to the therapy, to me, all the good work is worth it. So helping those patients. But if we can leverage what we learned from LAD drug development, apply it to bigger and bigger, more complicated diseases, like a Danon disease, which impacts, 30,000 patients in US and Europe. And unfortunately, those boys with Danon disease die at the age of 19, 20, if they don't have a transplant, heart transplant. So if we're able to apply the best practice there and make that drug development quicker, I think we can de-risk the technology and make it safer and better known so we can actually impact millions of lives. So Rocket has been, we start with smaller diseases, proof of concept, learn, and apply to bigger and bigger, more impactful diseases that impact thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives. So that's the platform approach that I'm thinking about. And what's your thought?
Yeah, I think from the business commercial approach, this first program, LAD1, Kresladi will be the name of the product, hopefully June 30th, is really the first of a series of programs and products to come. And it's a way to get out there, figure out the supply chain, figure out the qualified treatment centers, figure out the distribution channels. And we actually treated on the trial 3 times as many patients that actually get transplanted with severe LAD1 every year. So we actually have practice in the clinical trial itself. So our model here is inbound interest, just making sure that we have the infrastructure set up so that we can apply that to bigger and bigger programs, Danon, et cetera. And so that's sort of the vision for the near term. And long term, obviously, we do clinical trials to get them to as many patients in the world as possible. It's just commercialization goes hand in hand with what's good for humanity, right? So this is
And
one of those
accessibility,
rare
right.
accessibility. And just to go back on the partner point, I just wanted to make one additional point. Businesses are there because of people. And I think what worked for us in the beginning is finding partners who had this shared set of values. So we outbid many of competitors then, not through money, because we didn't have much money, but just through these understanding with these partners of trust and generosity. And you could just look at one another in the eye.
You were aligned
That
with
was
your
a-
values, in addition to the work that you were doing and your passion behind it.
100%.
Yeah. I want to talk for a minute about the patient experience, since that is so important. So Gaurav, as you're surveying the potential impacts of breakthroughs in gene therapy, how do you see care for patients evolving alongside that?
So it's going to be something that takes time to roll out in a very broad sense. Care for patients so far has been centered at sites or amongst physicians and hospitals that have a lot of experience in transplant, experience in immunology, experience in cardiology. And to get those therapies beyond those immediate centers is not easy. In fact, there are other gene therapies that you put them out in countries like Kazakhstan who don't have the infrastructure in some ways, have resulted in some patient deaths. So we're figuring this out. And one by one, I think keeping control of the product with education, medical affairs education, with selecting really qualified centers and qualified physicians and healthcare providers in general, and then scaling that up is going to be as difficult as the gene therapy itself, and that's stage 2 of this rocket, soon to come.
And Kinnari, I want to move now to the accessibility part of the equation, right? The importance and availability of genetic testing. Why and when to get tested? When do you know that you need to get genetic tested?
I'm a scientist, and I think, to me, I recommend that everyone get tested, right? Don't wait for the symptoms to appear or you feeling uncomfortable and having to go to the 4th or the 5th hospital to figure out what's wrong with you. I think the beauty of genetic testing is versus 20 years ago where it costs $10,000, $20,000, it costs a few hundred, if not $100, $150. And most insurance companies cover it. So I think getting genetic testing, it's almost like a playbook for you to know that all the common rare diseases that are out there, do you have any of them? And what do you do to make sure that you're watching and proactively monitoring to ensure that you don't have a progression of a disease or it doesn't become a symptomatic thing. Just because you have a mutation doesn't mean it's going to become life-threatening. But knowing you have it allows you to really be prepared to know what to look out for and how to manage it. So to me, I recommend everyone get it done as quickly as possible in their life. And I think the other component of genetic testing is what I really appreciate is there are so many foundations around the globe where genetic testing, we were talking to immunodeficiency physicians in India and in Pakistan, and they said, hey, we can do this too. So the fact that it's available globally is a starting point. And getting patients educated to get access to it too is step number one. And as I say that, I'm still trying to get all of my family members to do it, right? So it takes education, the fear of the unknowns becoming a known, it's scary.
Right. I mean, I was going to ask you about that too, because it kind of hits a little bit too close to home. It's your body. It's sometimes you might feel a bit powerless, and even just talking to family members. But really, I just want to underscore that it is mission critical, right? If you're going to get a head start on potentially battling a rare disease, right? Like without genetic testing, it's nearly impossible to diagnose that.
Definitely. We had a patient last year, rare disease day. She was into sports and wanted to go and pursue that in college. And she collapsed one day and found out that she had PKP2 disease. And that's
Which is for the
pyruvate kinase. It's a cardiac disease that happens, unfortunately, and you can be diagnosed as early as, I think she was in her mid-teens. And then when she got diagnosed, they tested the family members and her nieces and nephews, and there was at least 7 of the family members that had it, right?
Oh
her knowing that information, her family members knowing that information, they were better prepared because, as you know, one of the things that could happen with diseases like PKP2 or cardiac genetic mutations, it could cause sudden cardiac death. So knowing things like this could help you actually become better educated on what are the interventions that I need to watch out for. So her mom and her talked about how once we knew our diagnosis, how do we tell the rest of the family to get tested? And what does it mean for them? And those conversations are very delicate. And I think there are genetic counselors, like the one we talked about earlier today, we were so glad she was here, that can help facilitate those discussions.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk now, we have just a couple minutes left, about future plans for the company. You have this exciting drug in development. We're very hopeful for all the positive outcomes as discussed. You're already a publicly traded company near your 52-week high. So from a business perspective, the business is growing very, very gracefully, very beautifully. The markets are reacting well to that. The industry is reacting well to that. Patients are benefiting from what you're doing. Talk to me about long-term vision, Gaurav. Let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think there are, in the health of our species, there's 3 or 4 buckets of how people can pass away. One is accidents. One is infections. And a big bucket is genetically modulated diseases, which includes monogenic diseases like the ones that we're tackling, but biogenic, multigenic, polygenic diseases, including other cardiac diseases, such as CAD, others, cardiac heart failure syndromes, Alzheimer's, diabetes. All of these are polygenic diseases that could be modulated with some form of gene therapy. So ultimately, we want to start with these single gene defects. We've cracked the door open, and our goal is to push the door open all the way so that third bucket can be taken care of for the rest of our species' future history. And that's no easy task, but you got to start small and grow from there. So that's really the long-term vision. It could be viral gene therapy, could be non-viral gene therapy, but this is like medicine 3.0 or medicine 4.0.
And right now, are we at 2.0?
The last century is medicine 2.0, which is very reactive, right? You only treat after you get sick. Medicine 3.0 is you cure before you even know you have a problem. So that's where we're headed.
Do you see the potential for that type of gene therapy advancement in our lifetimes?
It's here.
It's here. But on the mono side, the single gene, we're talking about the multiple,
Yes, there are already efforts in place for the 2 gene defects, the 3 gene defects. I think maybe with AI, we'll be able to get the complexity of polygenic diseases mapped out better so that we can tackle them. I think that'll happen in some of our lifetimes. Some of us are going to live longer than others. So, so if you meditate.
Yeah. From a business perspective, we've covered how meditation it benefits the bottom line of companies, but also just happier employees or healthier employees, and You guys just finished that session, so I'm sure you know just as well as the rest of us there. So we just have a minute left. And in closing, I want to end with some words of encouragement. So Kinnari, why don't we start with you? What words of encouragement or insights would you like to offer patients and attendees here today?
My vision is simple. I want to make sure that we can make a dent in the 7,000 rare diseases. Instead of 400 million patients and 1 billion plus families impacted in our lifetime, even have half as many diseases have therapeutic options would be a great thing. So I want to let patients know, and families and those that are watching outside, and also the scientists here, there's hope. There are scientists, there are companies, there are researchers like us that are trying to make it happen. So we hope that we can bring you hope, and we hope that we can do this sooner than before it's too late for you and your loved ones.
Gaurav?
I think time is on no one's side, and certainly not those with devastating rare diseases. And instilling a sense of urgency in ourselves and in one another is really critical to the success, not just of the drugs, but to the overall business of gene therapy, which is transforming our species. So urgency is critical.
All right, well, on that note, we're just about out of time. Any last final words before we say goodbye for today?
I have just one. I want to make gene therapy available to everybody in the world. These diseases don't just impact people in the US or Europe. So we need to figure out how to work together, how to scale it up, how to make it affordable and accessible, that wherever the patient is in the world, they have access to it. And I think to do that, it won't be just Rocket alone. It's going to take the entire ecosystem. It's going to need supporters like you to really make it available. So I'm excited about the future. It's challenging, but thank you everyone for being here and celebrating the Rare Disease Day with us, because the patients are waiting, and I'm glad we're able to celebrate and provide some hope today.
And Gaurav?
I'm good. I have some closing comments.
All right, great for closing remarks. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us.